Hello and welcome to Coaster Focus, the channel where it's very obvious that I'm running out of creativity because I'm making 2 videos on a row talking about POVs of coasters I've never ridden. I'm going to have to stress this even though I had to say it in the last one of these judging videos. I'm doing this purely because it's a thing people say you shouldn't do, and because I think I'm really cool, I want to do it anyway. Don't take this as a proper review of the ride. Take it as an unfunny person on YouTube who's run out of video ideas, looking at roller coaster POVs on the internet because I don't even know at this point. It is my fault this channel's dying. So the POV I'm going to be judging today was actually recommended by a viewer. Oh my god, I looked at the comment section. So thank you to Slovis Celery. Oh god, sorry if I said that wrong, I probably did, but thanks for recommending it. But anyway, it's Duelling Dragons. I'm not even going to attempt saying that one. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for ones you want me to look at, I mean, comment it down below. I'm looking for coasters that not many people have ridden, so it's interesting to look at the POV at. Anyway, this is an Intamin, well, 2 Intamin coasters that opened last year in China, and it's a dueling sit-down and inverted coaster, or, well, they're both, they're their own coasters. But anyway, it's really cool, okay, because you've basically got a sit-down and an inverted coaster going along the same track, pretty much. I mean, that's cool. But I think this is also a good one for me to look at, because when this opened I did look at POVs and videos of it a bit, but I didn't really spend that much time looking at them. So today I've kind of forgotten what it's like, and I'm going to initially have some first impressions, and then I'm going to spend a bit longer looking through the POV to find things to spot, I guess. So before I have a look in more detail, I'm just going to give you my real-time, just genuine reaction to watching the POV. I'm going to do the sit down first, and then the inverted, but I'm not going to talk much about the inverted because it's basically just the sit down coaster, but you're underneath the tracks. Anyway, so the POV is by MiyaPA Masane. Oh my god, there's too many pronunciations in this video that I can't say, but I'm going to have to stress, because this is purely criticism and review, this is fair use. So if I get striked for this video, I'm gonna be a bit annoyed. But it's a mounted POV, so they're kind of the fairest if you are trying to judge a POV, which again you shouldn't do. Anyway, look, I really am rambling on, so I'm just gonna watch it. So we start off with a bit of an LSM shuttle launch. Honestly, given that this ride is 2 roller coasters anyway, it is very impressive that they've managed to fit in this as well as the full layout, so it is cool. We've seen a lot of these on new Intamin coasters. Not going to be the best part of the ride, but it's certainly a fun way to start off. So you go up into a big vertical loop. Looks like it's going to have some cool hang time. Going up another hill. It's kind of an odd dive loop, maybe not that much air time, but looks fun. This 0G roll is extremely whippy though, and that transition is insane. There's a lot of intensity on this ride. Nice, really intense. Oh god, it's getting ahead of me. What do I even say? This ride has got some really nice pace and some really whippy transitions. But wow, it is short. So first time watching the sit down POV, the ride has a very fast pace and it has some extremely whippy transitions. There's maybe 1 or 2 points that are a bit odd because the airtime isn't that strong or as much as it could have been, or it kind of goes straight. But I think that's pretty much just because this is a dueling coaster and it's dueling with the suspended coaster. The suspended coaster is going to have to move a bit differently, so when they're trying to get the tracks to duel, it probably is going to result in those kind of weird moments. But for the most part, there's some really insane transitions on there, some really strong ejector airtime hills, some nice bursts of intensity, but nothing too long. Looks really solid. The layout is a bit short, but the fact that it's got that kind of shuttle launch at the beginning makes up for that a bit. Although it's probably not as exciting as the rest of the ride, it's definitely something interesting to put in there. Anyway, now on to my impressions of the inverted side before I go on to my in-depth analysis of both. This one's also mounted by the same person. Please don't copyright strike me, what I'm doing is fair. So it's starting off in the same way. I mean, it pretty much all is the same because it's on the other side of the track, which Why would you even do that? It's cool. Anyway, so shuttle launch, we've seen this on kind of coasters like Wicked, Twister, inverted shuttle launch. Again, it's a cool thing, but it's not amazing. So probably a bit of hang time, quite a lot of hang time at the top actually. That is a very strange dive loop, but I think it looks pretty cool. Again, with the 0G roll, looks like it could actually give airtime. Very strange for one of these inverted coasters. The Immelmann's kind of cool, but more potential airtime on an inverted coaster there. Very interesting. And another airtime hill on the inverted coaster. What even is that? And you come round into the brakes. Now again, very short. Expected that because it's dueling the other one, and the shuttle section is cool, but it doesn't do a right lot. As I was saying, it is very interesting that there's airtime on an inverted coaster. You don't really see that because when you've got a coaster train underneath the track and the track has to arc to get the airtime in, the seats get closer together, and if you kind of get what I'm trying to say, and they try to avoid that. Now I think if you're an enthusiast, it is going to be a bit strange to get airtime on this inverted coaster. It's not going to be the strongest, it's going to be a bit odd, but I guess kind of cool. The inversions on there are quite whippy, and the pace is kept quite well. I do have to say though, the sit down version looks quite a lot better because it's sit down and there's airtime hills. They're a lot stronger. I think the pace is going to be kept a lot better. Either way though, if you are on the inverted coaster, the dueling aspect of it is very cool, but I just don't think the actual ride forces are going to be as fun as the sit down side. Anyway, I'm going to watch them a few more times and come back with a more in-depth analysis. On the orange sit down side, the launch is a little bit slow to get going initially. It's nowhere near as bad as Icon though, so I wouldn't worry about it. But you go up the first part of the vertical loop and you go a bit beyond 90 degrees, so maybe a bit of hang time there. But then the backward launch does seem more powerful than the first forwards launch. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it takes you up into a nice vertical spike with a couple of brief seconds of weightlessness. Not sure if you actually come out of your seat though, but then you're propelled forwards by the third launch, and this time complete the vertical loop. When you go up into it, it has some pretty strong positives, and possibly some nice hang time at the top as well. After exiting the vertical loop, you make your way to the right of the inverted track, which has some very cool dueling if you ask me. But there are some trims on here. Now I really can't say if these are used every time or not. They're most likely just to control the dueling, but they are serving a purpose. The transition into the dive loop is straight as well, which isn't ideal, takes a bit away from it, but when you do go into the dive loop, there's some nice floater airtime at the top, and the banking down is really fast, and you do come out into a tight pull-out with lots of positives, and you're really launched into the 0G roll, and that 0G roll is very fast. It's taken at quite some speed. After the 0G roll, you go into a transition underneath the green track, and this transition is really quite whippy, even for an Intamin coaster. Roller coasters built by Intamin do often have very strong transitions. You look at rides like Intimidator 305, Maverick and Taron. This is kind of on par with some of the ones on Maverick. It's pretty impressive, and this coaster does have lap bars to make it even epicer. After this transition, you go into an intense overbank, which has some high positives, and exit quickly as you dive down into a very strong ejector airtime speed hill. It might be short, but it is very strong. I hate how many times when I'm looking at roller coaster POVs, I say very strong, and there's a lot of very strong airtime. It is very short. What am I on about? Anyway, you go through this while the other train is over your head. That's a crazy dueling moment, and the speed hill does remind me of the one on Tiger at Lynn and Mackie, which people say is very strong. You go through another overbank, which is a bit shorter with again some high positives, which takes you down underground into a very intense immelment. Now, coming up into it has some very high positives, but the transition out is strange because the track is basically just straight and twisting, which means you're not really going to get airtime, you're not really going to get a very smooth transition on the way out. They might have done that because of dueling and trying to fit it around the other track, but it's odd. It could be better if it wasn't like that, but I don't think it's too bad. And after this element, you go around another turn and straight into the brakes at speed. I don't think my impression has changed that much from watching it the first time. There's some cool inversions on there and there are some odd transitions out of them, but although this ride is short, it does have some great intensity and some great pacing. I think pacing is very important because if you can string together some really intense elements and some really strong airtime without a break, it just feels so chaotic, and this ride does that really well. Intamin know what they're doing, and what they're doing is great. Now, the inverted coaster here, I still don't think is as good as the sit down. The launch is similar but inverted. You got a slow start, but then you go up and maybe have a bit of hang time as you start to go beyond vertical. You get launched back again, you go up a vertical spike, you get some weightlessness, and you go forwards into the vertical loop. Similarly, you get again some hang time at the top, but as you make your way left of the sit down track, you go up into the dive loop. But this is odd because it banks the other way before you bank and get inverted and go down into the dive loop. It looks a bit like someone forgot to place another roll point on No Limits 2 to stop it from banking in the other direction. Hilarious jokes by me aside though, it probably does something and it probably feels cool. Anyway, you go into a dive loop. It's a good dive loop for an inverted coaster. Looks like it's got lots of airtime over the top of it. And then you go round into a 0G roll, which might not have airtime because it's inverted, but it really flings you around a bit. Great terminology from me there. Flings words. But yes, it really flings you around, taking you underground into another inversion, Nimmelman, and this one actually exits normally. But now we have something which hasn't really been done that much before, which is airtime on an inverted coaster. This slightly off-axis hill has some strong floater, which will be an interesting sensation on this kind of roller coaster, before you bank over the red side and go into another floater airtime hill, which is maybe a little bit weaker and is trimmed. Again, whether or not they actually use the trims, I don't know. But after this, you get brought round into the brakes. Very cool inverted coaster, strange moments of airtime, but it's cool. Good intensity, cool inversions, epic dueling, not as good as the sit down. Overall, these two coasters together are going to have some really cool dueling. The idea of this, having a dueling coaster and a sitting coaster duel anyway, is a cool idea, but the fact they've done it in places where you're pretty much on the same piece of track, that is going to look really cool off-ride. And even if the inverted side isn't as good as the sit-down side, it's still going to have some really cool dueling. The sit-down side is really up there with some of the world's better coasters. Now, because I'm extremely pretentious, I'm going to even try place this in the world rankings. And I'm going to use Captain Coaster, which is a website where people put their rankings on it, and it compares them all to work out like global rankings of roller coasters. Not a perfect website, but it's a good starting point. So yeah, looking at this in the current state compared to some of the other roller coasters on here, which most of them I haven't ridden, I'm going to put the sit down side at about 42, which would place it just underneath New Texas Giant, around some of the worst RMCs like the Joker and Goliath, and also up there with Nemesis, which I do think it's a little bit better with. So I think in terms of world rankings and similar roller coasters of a standard, that's where I would place it. Not sure why Kanan is at 43. Ignore that because that needs to be like in the top 10, but that's how good I think it is. Look, that's my brain. You're going to be sick of me by now. If you have recommendations, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Yeah, bye.